something tells me that this is going to be a phenomenal Truck Show podcast episode. You know why, Holman?
Why is that,
Because
Lightning?
we have an author on the show.
We have an author on the show every week, Lightning.
We do? Who? You?
Me.
No, you're like well, I guess you technically are an author, but you're doing short form. This is long form. This is an entire book.
Listen, if you put all of my 1,000+ stories I've written over time together, it would also create many books.
I suppose so. Jim Pickering is the author of Chevy GMC Trucks 1967 to 72 and GMC Trucks 1973 to 87. And these are perfect bound, full-blown,
these are the books that
legitimate books.
Yeah, you get from like Barnes & Noble or something like that when you're going to pick up your OVR mag. And you go to the book section.
Nice plug.
Thank you. And you go to the book section and you do, how do I build or modify a Chevy truck? Boom, there you go.
And this is like the official guide.
That's
if
right.
you don't know where to start on building your dream truck, this is the book.
If you've ever grabbed one of those books and wondered, hey, I want to know what's the expertise behind the guy that authored this, or why are they the expert? Well, we're going to have Jim on this episode to tell us what it's like to write a book on how to modify vehicles.
And I'm going to need your help.
Okay.
Not you. The listeners. Well, some of your help. Maybe you can weigh in. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do want your help.
All right.
Right after the intro, I'm going to ask for your assistance on choosing something that I need.
All right. Well, before we get into that, we have to thank Nissan, our presenting sponsor. Matt, we've had a lot of big news in the last week behind the scenes. We just added our friends at Amsoil, who are supporting the Truck Show podcast, and we just renewed Nissan for a whole year as our presenting sponsor. So that means...
Oh, I have something for you.
Okay. All right. So that means that the Truck Show podcast will continue for at least another year. Thank you, Nissan.
All right, let me show you. I'm going to start out with my favorite one
shirts.
first. Right, hold on. It's this one. Bunch of T-shirts right here.
I got Amsoil
Do you mind if I open this?
You're already doing it?
No, I'm going to open this so you can see it. Look at this one right
All
here.
right, it's a Brad Lovell shirt?
It is. You got yourself an
Amsoil
XL.
with Bronco on there. Nice.
Yep, so
I
that's
love
the
it.
Brad Lovell shirt right there.
All right,
All right, let's see what this one is. I'm just busting these open. I was so excited to get all these shirts today.
Oh, I like that one.
Scott Birdsall.
I want that.
Right?
Wait, is that like a 4X? How big is
No,
that
it's
shirt?
XL. You're going to shrink them.
Damn, that thing
These
is
are all your
huge.
shirts, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
These are all yours.
All right, I like this one.
Okay, what is this guy right here? All right, this is an Amsoil
Pocket tee.
Oh,
What's on the
pocket
back?
tee. That's nice.
All right, what's on the back?
pocket
It is Amsoil.
And this guy is an
Amsoil
official
Racing.
Amsoil Racing because we are
Team Amsoil. That's
Exactly.
right.
One more.
You got more?
I got another one. Dude, I'm re-wardrobing you.
Okay.
All right, this one right here.
All right, that's a Banks shirt.
You've never seen this one before.
Is this a new one?
This one is just for employees.
You didn't know it yesterday when I was at Banks doing stuff with you and Mr. Banks. I was wearing my Banks House of Horsepower shirt under my nice shirt.
Well, it doesn't do any good if you're wearing it under your
Well, I
button
did.
down.
I didn't know that you were going to be there. I thought it was just a simple Banks meeting. I wanted to look nice.
So this one is for staff only. Check this
I
out.
like that.
Look at the back.
Oh, that's cool.
Right?
Read
it aloud.
Banks D630th. How can it be D630TH turbo hybrid? It's like a Cadillac Seville STS.
That's the way
It's
they
the
wanted
same
it.
thing.
It's diesel, 6-cylinder,
Yes.
3-liter turbo hybrid.
Development team.
Yes, with the engine in the middle.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's military colors. Can I tell you a funny story?
You can tell me.
We spent
funny story.
weeks editing a video
Okay.
to tell the whole world about how we developed the diesel hybrid Humvee for the U.S. Army.
And they told you no.
They told us no. We submitted it, and they said, you have been way too specific. They said, you need to, and we turned in like it was like 19 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And they came back and go, not
so much.
much.
Yeah.
You've revealed much too much about our little program. That was a lot of work to make that video. That may
nothing.
never see the light. Well, the Army will see it, but
Well, yeah.
you won't.
You won't see it.
Which sucks.
That's okay. There's a lot of things we do here on the Truck Show podcast that
No.
hit the cutting room floor and
No,
you
no,
never
no,
see.
No, that's because it's bad. This was good.
All right.
This was very entertaining.
Well, let's thank Nissan for coming back as our presenting sponsor. So if you are in the market for a mid-size truck, head over to your local Nissan dealership where you can check out the Nissan Frontier. It starts at just $30,030, nicely equipped. We're talking a 3.8-liter dual overhead cam, 24-valve V6. Oh, by the way, that is the engine. There is no base engine. There's no turbo. There's no hybrid. It's just a good, old-fashioned dual overhead cam, reliable V6, backed by Nissan's 9-speed automatic, makes 310 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque, and tows up to 6,640 pounds, and that's because of its fully box frame. It's available in 2 body styles. And that $30,000 price is the King Cab S model. You get Nissan Connect's 8-inch color touchscreen. You get 0 gravity seats. You get remote keyless entry. You get the 8-inch screen with Apple CarPlay integration, Utilitrack tie-downs. You get cabin filtration, power windows and locks. All that for $30,000. It's a heck of a deal. It's the truck that has everything you need and nothing you don't. Head over to NissanUSA.com where you can build and price your new Frontier today.
And for those of you that are sporting a Duramax 2017 to 2024 L5P, Banks just dropped a bomb. It's called a Monster Ram, and it's an intake elbow. It's basically, it mounts to the turbo inlet. Not only is it cool looking in cast aluminum, it improves your throttle response, it extends your turbo life by slowing down the shaft speed because it increases air density. And it doesn't suffer from any of the turbo surge that all of the competitors do. Again, if you have a Duramax L5P and you're looking for better throttle response and a little bit of bling under the hood, head over to bankspower.com, type in your year, make, and model, and find your Monster Ram.
And again, we are so excited to have Amsoil. Both Lightning and I are huge fans and use it in our own vehicles. So when you're looking for a quality full synthetic lubricant for your truck, Amsoil has you covered with motor oil, lubricants, protectants, grease, additives, and more. Amsoil has been a pioneer in synthetic lubricants for more than 50 years and delivers wear protection, engine cleanliness, and fuel efficiency that conventional oils simply can't match. Amsoil's specialized products are engineered for extraordinary performance across automotive, racing, and power sports. And Lightning, did you know Amsoil is the official oil and the title sponsor of the Ultimate Call-Out Challenge?
I did.
They're also the official oil of the National Association of Diesel Motorsports. So
I didn't know that one.
Their catalog must have thousands of things in it because you could get lost in that thing, as I did the other day. So find out how Amsoil synthetic lubricants can save you money and time by helping your vehicle run better and last longer. When it comes to lubrication, Amsoil is the leader in synthetics. Find out more at amsoil.com.
The Truck Show. We're gonna show you what we know. We're gonna answer what the truck, 'cause truck rhymes with the Truck Show. We have the lifted, we have the lowered, and everything in between. We'll talk about trucks that run on diesel and the ones that run on gasoline. The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show. Oh, oh.
It's the Truck Show with your hosts, Lightning and Holman.
All right, Holman.
You said you needed our listeners
Yep.
to help you make a decision. But
Yes.
you know our listeners love to help you make poor decisions, so why are
I
you
know.
asking them?
I think it's funny. I think
right.
it's funny. I'm a glutton
right.
for punishment. All right, in this bag, my buddy Ken G over at Long Beach Clothing Company that I used to own. All right. Oh, he made this. I'm going to give this to you, though. That's an air freshener for you.
Oh, I know exactly what that. Why does it say censored?
That's
That's the meme everybody sends of the rather large man sporting. Well, let's just call him a tripod.
Yes. Yeah, he is. Okay, so he's got a plotter over
Okay.
there at the back of the
Yeah.
clothing store. They make stickers. All right. And I said, can you print me this sheet of stickers?
Uh-huh.
And these are stickers that I would be potentially applying to the back window of the TRX in hopes of deterring said future thieves from breaking the window that has not yet been put in my TRX because they're back ordered.
Funny you should bring that up because I believe we have some emails from our listeners with some really good ideas I hadn't thought about before.
Really?
Yeah, so we'll get to those later in the show.
No, we should actually do that
No,
here.
we're going to get to them later in the show. You tell us your stupid sticker idea, and then they will redeem you with good ideas.
But here's what I wanted to do.
All right.
I wanted to read these to you guys.
I'm waiting. Let's read.
And then I
Go.
wanted to weigh in. So
Okay.
let me know your opinion about these.
All right.
Either with an email or be preferable on the 5-star hotline,
All right.
657-205-6105. 657-205-6105. Tell me what you think of these potential stickers. I've already made these, so I'm hoping you guys like one of these. Which ones do you think will deter a thief from breaking the rear window so I don't have to go through this agony again? All right. The first one, Holman, is, you can read it.
Igla protected. That one's dumb.
Okay, well,
Yep. No, thank
this
you.
second one is,
Key pairing mode disabled.
all right.
All right. These are in silver, by the way.
Yep,
Silver
these
with
are-
block Helvetica or something
Exactly.
like that.
All right, and this one, pretty straightforward.
Do not break glass.
Yep, do not
Okay?
break
that,
glass.
I think, is asking people to break your glass.
All right, how about this one right here?
That would be break glass, make noise.
Break glass, make noise.
Reminds me of a time that I was at scout camp as a counselor, and we had a one-way or one single lane wide 14-mile dirt road into camp, and the school buses were coming in with that week's campers, and a guy tried to go out the road, and one of our counselors who was out there, one of the staff members, Phil Brigandy, ran out after the car up the dirt road, waved him down, and all he could manage to get out before the bus came around the corner was, "Big yellow bus, go boom!" that was all he was able to.
What?
So I feel like that's that one right there.
Why was he yelling?
Brake glass, make noise! Because they would have had a head-on collision with a bus full of 50 scouts.
Oh.
And he wasn't going to say, "Sir, stop. If you continue, a bus full of 50 scouts will ram into you."
Big yellow bus, go
big
boom.
yellow bus, go boom. He just shouted. That's what he shouted out.
That's funny. All right, one more. Here you go. This is
Security protected.
a little boring. But,
Very boring.
These are literally die cut.
Yeah.
These are vinyl die cut
Yeah.
stickers,
They
right?
look like it.
How about this one? Read it slower.
A vehicle does not run.
Vehicle does not run. All right. All right. And this one is your personal favorite.
Thieves will be shot. That is. Let's. I'm going to take that for the podcast studio door, and we'll put
no,
that
that's
there.
my only
You'll
one.
need
Right
that
there.
one there.
Okay. All right. So that's your selection right there, because I had white and silver made.
Yeah.
All right. And so again, what do you guys like best for the back window? Did you like IGLA protected? So if they're a thief that knows their so to speak, do they go, "Oh, it's IGLA. Let's turn away. I'm not going to waste my time because I can't get past this security system."
I don't think any of those are going to help you.
No, so they're not going to vehicle does not run, security protected, do not break glass, keep herring mode disabled, break glass, make noise, or thieves will be shot.
Thieves will be shot. truckshowpodcast@gmail.com.
Or the 5-star
What is it?
hotline, 657-205-6105. I'm being honest now, guys. Will any of these work? Have you been in a similar situation where you've had to put up a guard dog sign or something because guys kept breaking into your yard? Or what is the effective messaging?
You put a guard dog inside your truck. Just lives there.
Now, people have said, they're jokingly, but is there anything that will catch someone's attention in the literally 2 seconds you have before they pop the window in? That's the question.
Yeah.
No, you don't think any of these will work?
I mean, you could try them.
I'm going to try one. All right. Well, apparently there's some more suggestions in the email inbox.
I just don't know that a sticker in your back window is going to be the thing.
What is?
You need to listen to our emails later in the show where our listeners provide you with scintillating ideas of how to protect your vehicle.
None of these are going to work. I got a lot of spare stickers to send you guys.
All right. Thieves will be shot. Again, we'll keep that one here. I think the world would be a better place if you were lopping off fingers and ears from people who are thieves. We'd end that stuff real quick. Hey, I just got back from Easter Jeep Safari and took out the 392, as you might imagine. And I've got the Rhino Rack roof rack on it now, with a set of max tracks up on top, and drove out there and back, did almost 2,000 miles. And what do you think my fuel economy was in the 392? Keep in mind, Utah is at 80 mile per hour speed limit.
So you had the new roof rack, and did you have the Lightner box on top?
No Lightner box, but I did have the max tracks up there.
I'm going to 13.7. 13.7 miles per gallon.
I averaged just under 14 miles per gallon for the entire trip. And
Wow.
one of my hand-calculated tanks was 15.5.
Okay.
Thought was pretty damn good in the 392.
I mean, that's not bad.
I mean, it's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I can live with that.
I have not taken a long enough trip like that in the TRX. Not that we're comparing, but you did back in the day. What's your longest trip when you had the
I think our best
the Motor Trend Truck of the Year, whatever the hell it was?
Four-wheeler pickup truck of the year. I think the best tank was high 14s or something like that.
The highest I've gotten in the truck, I think, is 13.7, 13.8.
Hand calculated or what the screen says?
With a screen.
It's wrong because you're not
On
calibrated.
37s, yeah.
So you're not calibrated, number one, and then number two, it's always about, even once you calibrate, they're about half a mile per gallon optimistic. Almost all Stellantis products.
Really?
Yeah, which is super annoying. You know what's funny is I get in just about any Stellantis vehicle, it's always like half a mile optimistic. I get in the CRV.
And it's under. It overperforms?
No, is literally the exact same as hand calculated.
Oh, really?
Every time. Mind blowing. I'm like, how can they get it so right and nobody else can?
I mean, Honda and Toyota get a lot of things right that the American car companies
Just
can't.
saying, it's literally the same tenth on the back every time.
Well, you're trading excitement for boring and accurate.
I get it, but why can't excitement be accurate too? The Speedo's right. It knows how much gas it's metering through that monster. Here's the other thing I realized. So those of you with big truck engines will get this, but so when I'm idling the 392, it has an adverse effect on fuel economy. When I'm idling the Honda it'll idle for 5 or 6 days. It doesn't care, and it'll probably still pull out 20 miles per gallon on the tank. There's this delta of how much fuel it takes to dump in the 392 at idle that you need to be going at least like 20 miles an hour to get some decent fuel economy that's over 15 or something.
Well, I mean,
like
it ultimately is about, this is a question for Gale Banks because he is famous for coming up with the actual horsepower required for the engine to run itself. In the case of my truck, for example, it's just shy, like 49 horsepower just to run itself. Just to idle, it's exerting almost 50 horsepower.
just to sit there and run.
Because it's turning a blower that barely...
But what's interesting is it's like if I'm steady state in the 392 at 60, it'll be doing 22 miles per gallon. You move it up to 75, and that drops down to about 14 and a half. 80, it's about 14, maybe high 13s. But there's this delta of the 392 needs to be having some sort of rolling movement before it becomes anything that resembles efficiency. Whereas the Honda, it just is efficient all the time. It can just idle. It doesn't care.
It's like a generator.
Yeah. You sit there at a light and you don't watch your miles per gallon go down as you're sitting at the light. You do in the 392. So it's kind of weird having the little tiny, 2-liter-ish 4-cylinder and a 6.4-liter V8, and it's two completely dissimilar driving experiences.
And no turbo on that CRV either.
No, and speaking of, so Gale has a Blackwing that's been in the shop.
Just got it back this morning.
All right. Well, he still had that pile of Cadillac CT S5, whatever the V or excuse me, whatever the SUV version is.
It's
5.
like a wagon that someone put helium in. It just looks boom.
It's dumb. Yeah. And Gale hates that thing.
Hates it. He was telling a pretty funny story while you were there about his one-wheel peels. Like he's like,
oh yeah,
it's got torque steer, driving me freaking crazy.
He was very angry about that. But he comes out, sees me in the CRV, and the first thing he says to me is, "Well, that doesn't look like a race car." And I looked at him, I'm like, says the guy who's driving the mommy mobile with the Cadillac badge engineering, and he goes, "It's a loaner." And I'm like, well, yeah, so is this. This is my daughter. So we basically just traded insults in the middle of the street between the two cars that aren't really our normal cars that we would associate with each other.
Yeah.
Which was pretty funny. And there's a couple, I think Steven was walking by. There's some guy that's coming out of that other Banks building. And they're just watching, like, basically
jousting.
Gale and I just throwing verbal jabs at each other from opposite ends of the street. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've been stealing whatever vehicle is just left over at the end of the night. And it was that crappy gray 2007.
Nobody liked that.
Then I had
Why is it
2012.
people want the old dually where, like, the seat springs are coming up through where your butt cheeks go? People will drive that all day long, but
that's what I'm driving now.
All right,
so tonight I drove the 2007 and a half.
Okay, because normally you have the gray one that's like the bastard child.
Well, there's two. They look identical. One is 07 and one is the 12, and they're this that dark gray metallic.
Yeah,
and
granite crystal metallic.
So the 12 right now has no air conditioning and no heat. So whatever, it's just whatever ambient is. So that one sucks balls to drive. But I'm driving the dually, so I'm pulling out as Gale is pulling out at the same time, and he looks across at me and he's like, "Why are you driving that piece of shit?" I'm like, it's Banks.
He owns it.
Yeah, he owns it. It's his. He thinks it's funny. He's like, "Why do we still have that?" I'm like, "Because everyone loves it.
I drive it."
Yeah, because I'm driving it. Yeah, because there's just something about that old 07 body style. When the dually looks cool. And I don't know. And someone put the dually wheels backwards, the insides on the outside and the outside on the inside.
How do you not know?
And so we had powder coated the outers, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. So they looked decent. They were matte black. Well, they flipped them. So now the insides are on the outsides, and they're so rusted. And it just looks so ridiculous and so embarrassing. I'm like, how does that even happen?
That's just dumb.
It's dumb. All right, Holman, are you ready to call Jim Pickering, Beaverton Valley Times best-selling author?
Is he, though?
I don't know. I made it up because he's from Beaverton.
Well, let's ask him.
All right, let's dial.
Hey, guys.
Jim, it's Lightning and Holman, Truck Show Podcast. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're
Fantastic. We're ready to talk C10s, C20s,
book writing,
and
Linkage
so
Magazine.
much. Exactly.
But we can't do it.
We've got a jingle.
Till we play our jingle.
First, don't move.
All right, go for it.
Pull up a stool and share. Pull up a stool and share a story. Pull up a stool and share. How about you pull up a stool and share with us?
Jim, I hear that you're the number one best-selling author on the book list at Beaverton Valley Times. Is that true?
I don't know that.
I just looked for the smallest newspaper I could find in Beaverton, Oregon, where you're from. I figured that might be
Well,
comedy.
I was just going to say we claim to be the number one truck enthusiast podcast, so we can bestow upon him number one author from Beaverton.
I was going to say New York Times best-selling author, but then...
Oh, you mean the Schmork Schmines?
The Schmork or the Schmamazon best-selling author?
Well, we can agree that maybe I'm the best one you've talked to today.
Oh, hey, there you go.
See, there you go.
All right, so I'm sitting here with two books, and I got an email from a gentleman at CarTech and said, hey, we've got Jim, and he has written two books for us, the Chevy GMC Trucks 73 to 87 and the Chevy GMC Trucks 67 to 72. One of them is brand new. One of them is on its second printing, and we'd love to have him on the podcast. And so being an old school print guy and somebody who has been around this world for 25 years and still has no idea how you get a book deal or how that works. I totally want to know more.
I was going to say, he's holding two books in his hand, and that's two books more than Holman has written.
That's right. No, I mean, I've literally written volumes upon volumes of stuff, but not in one coherent book cover to book cover, format.
How does this?
Well,
how did you end up getting bestowed with this this duty?
well, it's certainly a process. So where it started was I've been in the magazine world for a long time, since about 2006. At the time that the first book came together, I was running a magazine called American Car Collector on the editorial side. And we were doing book reviews. And so I knew the people at CarTech, and they would send me books to review, and we would assign to have them reviewed, and that was all great.
And you said, hey, these books are I can do better.
No.
Okay.
What had happened was I was doing how-to content for the magazine. I was writing it and shooting it myself. And I think what happened was the guys that work at CarTech said, hey, why don't we have him do some books for us? And they started asking. And at the time, I wasn't sure I was ready to take that on, because it's 80,000 words. It's 400 photos. You've got 9 months to do it. And, in addition to working full time and I kept saying, well, I'm not sure that this is going to work right now. I need to have some more time to think about it. And I don't have the space, I didn't have a garage that was big enough. And then I moved. I ended up in a bigger house with a little bigger garage, and they called me at the wrong time. And either in a moment of clarity or weakness, I said, hey, and that's how I got started with the 73 to 87 book. Now, initially they wanted me to do the 67 to 72s. And those things had exploded in the market, and it couldn't make it work, mathematically in terms of being able to buy one and be able to build it. And so
Jim,
first.
So you said you didn't have a garage. Is that because, most writers just write, they do research, and they, after interviewing many, many people, they assemble thousands of words in a book, but you wanted to do it hands-on. Is that why you needed a garage?
Yeah. So I had learned, well, I had a garage, and I at the time it was full of 66 Chevrolet full-size car, which is the first car that I bought way back when and have had for. And so that car wasn't going to go anywhere, and I didn't have room to take another one apart and also keep my other car. So it just wasn't going to work. So for that reason, that was my convenient excuse as to why I couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden my excuse was gone. So I had to try something.
Where do you even start? Because here's why
I would imagine there's some sort of an outline, right? So for those of you who are listening who are going, tell me more about these books. You have come across these books your entire automotive life, whether it was in a shop, at a Barnes & Noble. There's companies that have these how to completely redo XYZ vehicle. So there is some sort of a format, right? And you had to figure out, can I tackle 100% of these subjects accurately to make a whole book out of it?
Right. So the first step in this process is to have me or whoever is going to be writing come up with an outline that is then submitted back to CarTech, and they look it over and decide whether or not that's going to work for them. And for me, being in the magazine world, I had learned early on that if I had to depend on other people, either owners or suppliers or whatever, it was harder for me to hit my deadline because I was dealing with people that didn't have to live under that same deadline. And so I knew if I was going to do this and I was going to, take the time to write 80,000 words and shoot all the photos and all that stuff, I had to control my own destiny, which meant I had to build my own truck. And so I needed lighting that I could control. I needed a space that I could control, and I needed to be able to source parts on my own timeline so that I could work it all out and still hit that deadline. And I think that's the most challenging part of all of this, is coming up with your plan and then executing it and making sure that you actually hit that deadline. It's a lot harder than it seems when you're working full time and this is something you just do on the side,
Hey, Lightning, is this the point where we realize we did the wrong jingle for him and we have to do the other one?
You're talking about which one? Innovator Motivator?
Shop Talk.
Oh, Shop Talk? Oh, sure. I guess we can do that. Hold on a second.
What's in the shop? What's in the shop? Tell us what's in your shop. A segment where handsome guys talk about your build. A crazy consumption that'll keep the whole world thrilled. What did you make? Why is it cool? We all want to know. And now it's time for some shop talk.
I don't know how that comes across through the phones because it's kind
It's
of a
funny
tinny,
to us.
old-schooly jingle. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's now it's time to do some shop talk. So, is this your truck in the 73 to 87 right inside in the that's page? Is that officially page 1? What would you call it on the right hand?
I would
Is this
say
page 1.
that would be that'd be page 1.
So, is that your truck? That's just the cab sitting on a chassis
Yep.
with the 4 wheels. Okay, and what
Yeah, that's
stage
in
did
my
you?
dad's driveway.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So then, did you buy one for both the 67 to 72 and the 73 to 87 books?
I did. Yeah. I started with the one you're looking at there in the 73 to 87 is a 79 short bed that I found on the streets of Portland that was not particularly expensive. And when I got it home, it was really good underneath. I think what had happened was the person who had owned it originally bought it as like a fishing truck or something because the bed was perfect. And it had some fishing stickers and stuff on the back window. And then it just by looking at the truck, it looked like maybe the guy had died or something, and he sold it to somebody else, and then it sat outside for a few years. And all the paint had kind of weathered down to a dull shine, and it had a little bit of rust here and there. And the guy had run into a couple things with it, but the bones were really good. And, as I took it apart, as you see in that first shot there, I tore it basically all the way down. I didn't take the cab off the frame because I didn't need to, but everything else I took off and cleaned up and put back on and did a little bit of paint work to it and stuff. But that one worked out really well simply because I bought it at the right time. It was right before those trucks took off. I mean, right before they took off in value. So I got lucky on that one.
Now, did you reach out? Does CarTech pick up foot the bill for this, or is this on you?
No, not me. There's an advance that you get for doing the work, but the advance doesn't generally cover all the work that you need to do, right? And so for me, it worked out because I had some contacts in the industry via the how-to stuff that I'd been doing before. And, when you call up a company and say, hi, I'm writing a book, I want to feature your product, generally they say, yeah, that's great. We'd love to do that. And you can work out a deal that way, which tends to, cover some of the cost and makes it so you can do some of the things that you might not otherwise get to do.
The subhead of these, it's like Chevy GMC Trucks, 67 to 72, and the other one is 73 to 87. But the bottom, how to build and modify. This is the guide to give you a general, you've got specifics in here from suspension, engine, interior, dash, you name it, every part of the truck. You could have gone 10 different ways on each of these trucks. You could have gone, you got lifted, lowered, street performance. I mean, how did you decide what was right for either you or the general populace?
So generally what I tried to do with every chapter in these books is cover all of the bases of the things that you could do. And then I explain what I did and why I did it. So I try to explain everything as clearly as possible, with regard to the suspension. Well, you can cut a set of coils and drop a truck that way, or, you can buy drop spindles or, this, that, the other thing, however you want to do it. I went with a coilover kit and this is why I did it. And then you can explain what the benefits are, what the costs are, so people can make their own decisions. Now, I try to make it pretty clear at the beginning of both books that this is just one way of 100,000 different ways you could go. And the point really isn't to say you could only build it this way, but that this is, a way that you could do it, and this is how it would turn out. And it's not as challenging as you might think. The steps are not that hard. You just begin and see it through.
When you're looking at these books, the books that you're doing in particular are how to build and modify versus the the Hiltons or Haynes or some of those other ones that are how to service your vehicle or how to pack a wheel bearing. I mean, you're really taking to the next level of how to make this truck your own. So you have a little bit more, I guess, creative leeway into how you explain the topic.
Yeah.
Because it's the custom world, not necessarily the how to repair and keep your OE vehicle on the road.
Right. It's not necessarily about restoration. If I wanted to write a restoration book, it would be very different.
Yeah.
The fun part for me is taking something and making it personalized, just like you were saying, and having fun with it and making something that is better to drive than it would have been originally, more fun to drive, maybe faster, maybe stops better, the kinds of things that will make you actually want to use the vehicle, especially in modern traffic. I talk about that a little bit, I think, in both books. At one point I had restored a 72 K10. It was a orange and white Chevrolet long bed. I loved that truck. And even though it was orange, I drove it daily for a while. And I felt like almost once a week, people were trying to run into me. I mean, they couldn't see it. Your average commuter couldn't see it. And it sort of made me believe that if you're going to drive an older vehicle, I don't care what it is, you need to have a little bit of an edge over your average daily driver. It needs to have better stopping ability, better acceleration, better handling, whatever, just so that you can survive.
What do you mean, Jim, by the orange? You're saying like because of the sunset or something? I don't understand that they couldn't see you.
It was a bright orange truck. And even though it was bright orange, they're too busy looking at their phones or playing with the radio or whatever. Your average commuters, they're just not paying attention. And so even though my truck was neon orange, they still couldn't see it.
I see what you're saying. Got it.
Yeah.
So when you started, some of the preface in these books, you're talking about, you've got a laundry list of the people that helped you, including your father.
Yeah.
But you even think like
Yeah.
the guy who taught you how to weld, basically, and gave you your first welder.
Uh-huh.
So you literally started from the beginning.
He has to come up with 80,000 words.
No, I mean, this is
That's right.
before he gets into the meat of the book. He's
Look
all
at the
these
part
people-
where he says the LS is very, 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 very popular.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
6 varies?
Well, that's how I write, so I assume everybody else does.
I was just joking with one of the guys at work. He was looking at a huge project. It's like, I'm overwhelmed. And so you must have had to design this truck and say, I'm going to build a whole truck myself. How do I do this? And then you had to learn all the skills, all the metalwork skills and everything else. Take us through that.
I wanted to be as genuine as possible. And with regard to the first book that I did, one of the biggest regrets that I had was that I didn't buy a long bed and cut it down, because I feel like with truck values where they are right now, that's what a lot of guys are going to have to do if they want to build something like what they see in the magazines, right? And so, but I ended up buying a short bed because it was cheap enough, and I feel like I got lucky in that sense. And so when I got to the point where I was going to build the second book, or the second truck for the second book, I knew that the first thing I had to do was cut a bed down. But I had never welded before in my life. So this was the kind of thing that I thought was sort of a legitimizing thing. I'm going to have to learn this too, And so the first thing I did was call a couple of friends of mine. I've been in the magazine and just the hot rod world for a long time. I grew up next door to a guy that built street rods when I was a little kid. He's the guy that lent me his welder. I have some friends that paint cars and some other people, and I just started asking questions. What is it I need to do? What do I need to set up? How is this going to work so that I can make this happen? I picked up a door skin that was off an El Camino and just immediately started cutting it up and welding it back together as best I could to learn the settings on the welder. And here's what happens if you go too fast.
How badly were you boogering it up at first?
It was terrible. It was really bad. And, it's, and I talk about that in the book. If you're going to try and do this, the best thing you could do is just begin, right? You just get some spare metal and start playing with it. It's not rocket science. You can figure it out. And that's what I ended up doing. I burnt some holes in the bed when I was welding it back together, but it worked
you
out.
just fill those up. It's no big deal. Okay, so going back to the books, the 67 to 72 book is new. Our understanding is the 73 to 87 you wrote a while back, and now it's on its second printing. So Let's talk about the demand. Obviously, you and I both live in worlds where we're hanging on to print. We have associations with print magazines. You're writing books. What does that look like? Who's buying those books today? And obviously, there's enough of a market out there that CarTech commissioned you to do the 67 to 72 book.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a really robust market for it, and more so than I expected that there would be. I look in on the Amazon rankings every once in a while just to see how it's doing, and both of the books tend to rank fairly high up just in terms of searches. So I know people are out there looking for them, and I can tell you from my own use patterns, having a book in hand is really handy when you're working on something because you don't have to go back and find the webpage. You don't have to go back and try and find the video.
An ad doesn't load in the middle of your reading.
Well, you know what? And a highlighter doesn't work on YouTube. You can't highlight with a bright yellow marker. You can scribble all over these things and come back, or dog ear the pages and come back and go, oh, I really like that brake setup. And then come back to it, a few months later when you got the cash.
And I think there's definitely something to be said for having all of those things on the web. And, that is definitely a benefit to everybody. But print is not dead the way that people say it is. And I think that's been obvious, at least in the book sales for these last two, that people are interested in it and they are buying them. So,
well, when you look at
and for the advertisers, or for the people that are supplying the parts, the people that are buying the books are spending, $30 on a book, and that is a qualified potential buyer of their products.
And let's face it, a lot of this is evergreen, right? Like the tech that you're writing about today is still going to, the parts may change and evolve a little bit, but overall these vehicles and the tips that you're sharing are going to be good. If I were to pick up this book in 20 years or something like that, it would still be valuable.
That's the hope.
Now, do you ever hear back from people, any readers? Do they try and reach you and say, hey, my dad and I finished this project thanks to your book, or you inspired me to take my project a certain direction? Or is it sort of just you throw it out into the ether and it is what it is?
It's a little bit of both. I did just this last weekend meet up with a guy who bought my book at Cars and Coffee here in town because he had a bunch of questions about his own 67 C20. And he wanted to see mine, and he wanted to ask his questions and let me see his and try to work with him to come up with a plan for what he should attack and how he should attack it. And that was pretty fun, just to look over this guy's truck and to see what it is, he's eager to do, and to have him look at mine and can point out the things that I think could have been done better on mine and things that he could do to his. It was pretty fun. And that kind of stuff does happen from time to time.
Within 3 pages of opening up the first book, the 6772, I learned that these trucks, the Chevy trucks, were called action trucks. And I look at Holman and I go, line. I said, what? All these years, I never knew they were called the action line? Since when? Mm-hmm. What?
That was a GM thing, and I guess it just never took off. I mean, they wanted to call the square bodies the rounded line, and that was completely opposite of what it ended up happening. So there you go. I mean, they can't dictate everything, I guess.
You weave history throughout these books. It's not just how-to articles. You tell backstory. You give production quantities of all the different years, C10s versus C20s and the K-trucks and stuff like that. But something I also learned that you talked about when the muscle car revolution happened, they quickly went up in price, and they pushed a lot of enthusiasts who couldn't afford those into trucks.
100%.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So basically, once the Mustangs and once the Mustangs and Camaros were gone, 2 things happened: the Mopars got popular, and the Chevy and Ford trucks got popular. Because if you think about it, in the 60s, a lot of those vehicles were all parts bin vehicles. So there's a lot of parts of Mustangs in the trucks, and there's a lot of Camaro parts that were shared with the Chevy trucks. And so to get that V8 rear-wheel drive experience, that was the next best thing to the muscle cars was the trucks. And that's when you saw trucks really take off, is once all the really good Mustangs and Camaros were gone, it kind of pushed everybody. Now the Mopars are getting rare. The Ford and Chevy 6772s are getting rare, so you're seeing people moving to square bodies. And if you want a truck of that vintage, really it's the Dodge trucks that are starting to take off, or even more so, seeing a lot of the Internationals now.
I feel like we all should have seen this coming from a mile away. I mean, I watched a friend of mine, and I think it was 1999. He had a 70 C10, and he had a 71 Chevelle. And this kid was, 18 years old. And I thought for sure he was going to sell the truck and build the Chevelle. And what he ended up doing was selling the Chevelle and using it to paint the truck. And I thought, what is happening here? Because back then the Chevelle was the car that all of my friends wanted, and here's this kid who was selling it and using the money to build a truck. And I'm happy to say, 23 years later, he still has that truck and it still looks wonderful. That same paint job looks really great. I see him at the same Cars and Coffee fairly regularly. And so, yeah, I mean, with muscle cars going where they went, it was inevitable, I think, that the trucks were going to come up in value because that's what people were buying and building. And underneath, like you guys were saying, they're basically the same thing. Small block Chevys, big block Chevys, turbo 400 transmissions, 4 speeds. I mean, solid axles, the 12 volts a little bit different in a truck versus a car, but you get the idea. I mean, you can go out and do burnouts in a truck just as easy as you can in a Camaro or a Chevelle or
maybe even easier because of the weight distribution.
Yeah.
Plus,
Probably,
on the Chevy trucks of the 67 to 72 vintage, it's coil sprung, right? So there's a lot more options for handling and ride and stuff that you might not think about, but it's not that different of an experience of building a Camaro in like a Pro Street style or something like that. Like I don't know. And right. I love the 60s trucks, the 67 to 72, whether it's the F100 or whether it's the C10, when they're lowered and they're wide and they have the right wheel and tire fitment on them, there's just nothing better. And it's funny because if
you like that better than the square body?
Yeah, I mean, I like the square body, but it's a different truck. It's See,
I'm not a square body fan either. I know people love square bodies. It's probably when they grew up, right?
My Uncle Warren had a 85 or an 86 1500. I think it was a 305, fire engine red, regular cab, short box. Just a short wide. And he bought that thing brand new, bench seat in the front. I remember him pulling it up to my grandma's house for the first time. I'm like, you look at it and you're like, holy crap, look at that, right? I was, probably 9 years old, something like that, maybe 8. And I knew an awesome red truck when I saw one, right? Like, that's one of those ones that you're like, man, that thing is cool.
But they look better lowered.
They do look better lowered.
Yeah.
And you also don't realize on the 67 to 72 Chevys, the way the body lines are, a lot of people shorten the bed of a long bed to turn into a short bed, but the color choice on that truck hides it a lot. You almost need to see it in a dark color like black. What you don't realize is that the rear 3/4 view of that pickup bed fender drops almost like it's going in, trying to be a fin of replicating that fin shape of those cars that era. And if you've never seen it at the right angle or the right sunlight, you'll never pick it up. And I remember the first time I saw a black C10 6772 rear 3/4 at the exact right light, and I'm like, holy crap! They designed basically kind of a vibe of the old Chevy car fins on the side of the truck.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture what you mean.
Well, you could probably find a picture in this book here.
I sure
you can find it. You can find it in the book. If you go to the section where I shorten the bed, there's a whole part that is devoted to keeping that curve intact. You have to cut diagonally across it in order to be able to match up.
I'm looking at it right here. Yeah, page 38, step 10. And
that's from a guy named Kyle Oxberger. That's Metalox down in Arizona. That's his method for shortening a bed, and he's quite good at it.
I've heard of Metalox. He's a legend. And so a couple questions. One, why were they producing so many long beds, and why does no one want a long bed today? Because personally, I think the long bed is better looking when it's lowered. I don't know about regular height or lifted, but lowered, a long bed just looks so cool. It's like a freight train. And the follow-up...
Oh, yeah. The proportions are just right.
Right. And the follow-up, why is Arizona, we've talked about this before, the mecca of the C10 culture today? They're everywhere, but really, is it... Yeah. So first thing is beds, and second thing is Arizona.
Well, I think you get a lot of farmers back in the day that bought trucks to be used as trucks, right? And so your vast majority of pickups, because they are designed to be pickups, they're just going to have a long bed. I think most people, when they were buying a truck to be used when it was new, were just buying them that way because that was the most useful option for them. And in terms of whether or not that's popular, I think a lot of that comes down to the collector world, and a lot of that comes down to what fits in a garage. A short bed will fit in the same place a Camaro will fit, and a long bed takes a lot more space. And if you're going to build something, if you've got the room, that's great. But, I think you're right that the proportions are right when you've got a lowered long bed.
I mean, I had no idea, Jim, that, for example, in 1971, they made the half-ton C10 short beds. They made 53,000. of the half-ton C10 long beds. Holman, how many do you think they made?
274.
224,000.
Ah, it's so close.
So like 53,000 to 224,000.
Well, you have to remember, back then people didn't use their truck as a personal use vehicle as they do today. And collectors today, they want something sporty with a wheelbase that approximates the muscle cars because it handles better and it basically looks better and has more of a sporty vibe to it. But yeah, back then, a personal use pickup truck was like the nice truck you'd take to church, but the long bed was or to town, and the long bed was the one with hay bales in the back and doing work with.
And that really gets to the heart of why these trucks are popular right now also. And that's simply because these trucks were built in the era where pickups were becoming something that people drove for more than just work. Your 67 and newer trucks, you're starting to see things more frequently like power steering, like air conditioning, power brakes, things that you would be more likely to see in cars are starting to make their way into pickups. And the nice thing about that, at least for people these days, is that your vehicle, your pickup, looks and feels like an old truck, but it doesn't necessarily drive like one. Even one that hasn't been modified, it still has the option of having power steering and power brakes and air conditioning and some of the nicer things on the inside that make it more comfortable to use.
Well, if they ever do a 67 to 72 Ford one, I'll just donate my truck to the cause because it's been sitting for about 5 years under a tarp in a warehouse.
Yeah,
but,
you don't know about that. That project went south.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, wait, he has to answer the Arizona thing first.
Because it's dry.
Oh, right.
Is it dry? Is it as simple as that? It's dry? That's it?
Well, I think that's the big thing. I think the trucks down there, and it's the same thing for where I found my 67, right? I had learned early on that if I was going to build one of these trucks, I needed to find one that came from a dry place because they all rust in the same places. And I didn't want to devote a lot of time to rust repair. So it was going to be the desert somewhere. I ended up going north. I went to the Tri-Cities up in Washington State and found my truck in a wrecking yard up there. But down in Arizona, I mean, they've got different problems. Their window seals are all dry rotted and cracking, from the sun, and the interiors are shot and the dash pads are shot, but the metal is all in really good shape. Why? Because it doesn't rain. I think it's as simple as that.
Speaking of rust, now you can buy basically any of these trucks, all the parts you need. You can call it Brothers Trucks basically, and buy every panel.
You can rebuild one from scratch almost.
You don't even need the truck.
You just need a frame.
You get the chassis, right? There's
you get the wiring harness, you get the suspension, you can get wheels, tires, you get brake lines,
steering
fuel
wheel,
lines,
interior,
all of it.
Like literally, you don't even need the original. I mean, if you could make up a VIN, which I'm sure some people have, it's like a Harley. You just do a special construction C10. I guess my question is, at what point does it not become the real deal anymore? Because you can buy all of these pieces. Like, where do you stop?
That's a good question. And it's funny. I've spent a lot of time defending some of the choices that I made when I built my pickup. And some of those things are the original bench seat, the original gauges with their weathered, needles that aren't quite orange anymore. And to me, there's kind of an X factor there of the bits and pieces that are still original that make it feel old, make it feel like that truck that I remember my dad having when I was a little kid, or that I worked on when I was early on in the days when I was wrenching as a mechanic, that kind of stuff. And when you build one from scratch, I mean, they're great because you can have everything brand new if that's what you want, but it does miss something there. I think that the evidence of the passage of time is sort of an important part to the whole process, and you won't only get that with a truck that's been around the block a few times.
All right, I've got a question similar to the start of Lightning's question, but I'm going to finish differently. You could have any of these trucks, all the parts to build it. Which one are you choosing? Are you going with the 67 to 72, or are you going with the 73 to 87?
And why?
Knowing what you know from doing these books.
That's a good question. I think the 67 to 72 is my favorite. That's what I would have done out of the gate, simply because I've had a number of them, and there's just something about them. I mean, if you've ever owned one, it's really hard to sell it, and you always end up buying it back in some shape or form, right? And they just weasel their way into your life, and then you're stuck. You've just become a truck person, and all of a sudden you're a C10 guy, and you don't really know how it happened, but it did. And so for me, I think that's where I would go again if I was going to do it again. But at this point, it's funny when I build these trucks and write these books, I'm looking at it in terms of content and different steps, different chapters. I'm not looking at it in terms of building a finished product. And every time, and it sounds funny to say every time, but both times I've kind of come out of it at the end and sat up and looked at this thing and gone, oh, that's actually a pretty cool truck. It's all come together into something. And the point was to do each of the steps and to document each of the steps. And it wasn't to build a perfect vehicle for the end product.
Has anyone penned anything for a CarTech for the 64 to 66?
Not that I know of. I think that's one that they've been trying to assign. I know they had some Fords that they wanted to do. And I think there's an OBS one in the works right now for the newer trucks. And I know that there's an earlier one. I think there's a 47 to 54 that is complete, I think. I'm not sure, but I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen anything on the. I built a 66 recently. Holman bought it for $1 for me as a present. Not officially.
Only half the world knows about that.
Yeah, I know.
Because the historical revisionist that went on in the public story of the vehicle. But
anyway,
but that's beside the point.
Bought one that was running and driving from one of our listeners. Thank you, Sean, for selling that to us. And then we sunk a few $100,000 into it and turned it into a SEMA truck. And
against all good advice.
Against all good advice. And when we had sunk many hundreds of thousands of dollars into the vehicle, I had to give the pink slip to the company that did all that work that I work for. And it is no longer mine. And it is, although it does feel original and old because we used a lot of the rusty body. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of rust holes in it still. We repaired the panels that we didn't want to leak and also were safety issues, but everything else you can still see the rust in the original patina, and dropped in a supercharged Duramax and a Ford 9-inch
nice.
And sitting on a Roadster Shop chassis and all that stuff. And we are
is that a humble brag about the book you should have written?
I don't have the talent or the skills to write a book like this like Jim has. But it would be interesting to, I didn't have any reference material other than YouTube videos. There was no book that I could find. So
right.
I would be excited for something for the 64-66.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jim, your day job, you said was with linkagemag.com, so Linkage Magazine. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Linkage is a magazine that I founded with Donald Osborne and the Audrey Museum and Chester Allen, who is an executive editor that I worked with for, he's over 15 years at Sports Car Market prior. And we began this whole project back in the summer of 2020 with the idea being that, that you get people that buy and restore cars over and over and over again. They're in the market to build and to have these cars that they spend way more than they're worth to build. And then they turn around and sell them for less than they actually have in them. And then they go and do it again. The whole idea behind this thing was trying to explain the passion behind the car world that's driving these people to do this stuff. And the way that we look at it is, well, if you break passion down, it's experiences, opinions, and values, right? Those are the three things that kind of drive people to do what they do in the car world. And so we decided that we would build a magazine that was aimed at those three pillars and try to sort of track what's happening in the car world via those topics. And so that's what we've been doing. We started out as a quarterly, now we're a bi-monthly, and we've got some great columnists. We got some great features that we put in there. We cover some auction stuff so that people can track the market and see what's happening in the auction world. And it's been a lot of fun. It's printed on high-end paper, and each issue is about 188 pages, I think, right now. And it's been growing pretty significantly over the past couple of years, and we hope to see it do even better.
So you're tracking, some of the, on the homepage, which is linkagemag.com, talking about these auctions, you're everything from like a 22 Bugatti Chiron at $4 million at auction, Ford GT, $4 million at auction, $4.4 million at auction. So you go from these crazy expensive cars to not as crazy. Are you following the vehicle or following the event?
We tend to do a little bit of both.
Okay.
So a good example would be we went down to Scottsdale, Arizona for the big auctions that happen every January. And we covered cars at Bear Jackson. We covered cars at the Bonhams auction, at RM Sotheby's, and at, who was the other one?
Was it Meekum?
There was, Yeah, no, not Mecum, because Mecum was in Kissimmee, but you're right. It was Mecum on the other side of the country. So we covered that one in addition. The idea being that we can pick and choose cars that actually matter to the market. The people that I work with that do the market side of things, I was the auction editor over at Sports Car Market for a very long time. So I've tracked the market, and I work with people that have tracked the market for a long time. We're able to pick and choose cars that are selling at auction that tell an actual story about what's happening in the market, and the people that I work with know what they're looking at, and they know when they see something that is noteworthy and means something. It's not just picking a car that sold for a big number. It's picking a car to write about that it has changed since the last time we saw one in some kind of a significant way, either up or down or whatever.
So then let me ask you this. So I'm sure you are very well aware of Bring a Trailer and how they've kind of changed the dynamic of like how you sell your vehicle and how they editorialize vehicles. That really wasn't done. I mean, we had Auto Trader and all these, the places you buy cars.
There's the nuts and bolts, but there's never the story behind it.
There's no story. And then they kind of made it a thing,
It's
right?
because all the people on Craigslist started going viral with all their hilarious stories about the vehicles, and people realized, holy crap, it's the story that sells. And
is that how it happened?
On the media side, we've known that forever. We know that it's all about the narrative, right?
No, but did Bring a Trailer happen because of car?
I don't know, but that's
Craigslist?
the chronological order of what happened. Is you start getting those Craigslist ads going viral, and all of a sudden now telling a story that goes along with the vehicle is suddenly an important part of the car buying process.
But like Bring a Trailer can anoint a vehicle and say, this is why this 91 Toyota pickup is worth this, blah, 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 blah,
today
blah.
They can. Today they can.
They kind of did that right out of the gate, I thought they did that kind of right out of the gate.
It was a blog that went around a small group of people that basically just tracked cars that they found online that were really interesting. It started out really just as a place for information, and it evolved into an auction after a number of years of just being an interesting place to go and spend some coffee break time when you were at work. And they changed everything when they started their auctions. I mean, the entire auction world kind of got turned on its ear, because all of a sudden you didn't have to ship your car across the country and run it across a block as your only option. I mean, eBay was also a thing, but Bring a Trailer brought with it this base of commenters that would weed out stuff that wasn't legit. And so it totally changed everything, because it wasn't just auctions. It wasn't just cool cars. It was also social media based on people that knew what they were talking about and was self-policing. It was brilliant in what they did. And so, it deserved to change the world in the way that it did, because it was so special. But they gave us the roadmap for all the other auction houses to survive COVID, because all of a sudden, all these auctions couldn't host their events anymore because people couldn't be around each other. They all went online, and they all tried to make something similar to what Bring a Trailer was doing. Some of them were successful and some of them weren't. And some of them are still doing it. Some of them aren't. But it's definitely a sea change, right? When that launched, it changed everything.
So having attended so many of these auctions, and to be honest with you, I think I've only attended one in my life. I would love to attend them more, but is it about the car, or is it more about the experience? Is it about showing off how much cash you have in front of other wealthy people? What's the dynamic at a Barrett-Jackson or a Mecum?
Well, every auction's different. Every auction location is different. Every auction company is different. And it really depends on the cars that are being offered and who's in the room to get them. Now, at a place like Barrett-Jackson, I think there's definitely an aspect of people that want to show up on TV that they're doing this and that they're buying a car. But at the same time, you can't just chalk up their numbers to that, because they continually break records and do what they do, right? It keeps happening. We talk about the truck world. I've been watching the truck values for the last decade. And every year I think, well, they're going to go back down. This was just a flash in the pan kind of thing. People are going to come to their senses and trucks are going to go back to where they were. And it still hasn't happened. Why? Because the demand is there. And I think that's what you see at a place like Barrett-Jackson. You're seeing the demand. It's definitely a lifestyle experience when you go to a Barrett-Jackson auction. And I think Mecum is a lot like that. And, the Mecum auctions that I've been to have been very much, I think, more about the cars than they are about the lifestyle. But there's a lot of that same sort of stuff happening in both locations. And then when you go up into the more boutique, smaller events like your RM Sotheby's or your Gooding auctions or your bottom sales, those guys, they tend to have a very, very high level of car. And you're talking like the bluest of blue chip cars and buyers, multi-million-dollar cars going up for sale. And, people that know very, very well what they're buying and why they're buying it.
Well, and I think even at some of the, let's say, middle range type of builds that go for big dollars out of Mecum or out of Barrett-Jackson or some of these auctions, I think there's sort of the mystique of these vehicles are starting to become a little bit more rare on the open market. And the ones that are available require a lot of work. And I think people are willing to pay a premium to have something done at a level of quality, which would be hard for them to replicate for the same dollar amount if they don't, they may have the resources, but they may not have the time, or they may not want to wait that long, and they're willing to pay that premium. And I think as things become more scarce, it's funny, we're looking at vehicles now that are probably in some places being redone for the third time. These are, 50, 60-year-old vehicles. Maybe they had a mild restoration in the 70s or 80s, and then maybe they had a Restomod in the 90s. And now, they want to do like a pro street tour or something like that, or pro tour or whatever. And maybe it was the grandpa passed it down to the dad, who passed down to the son. And then, their style is completely different, right? And they want to do it in their own way, but it's the same truck. So we're starting to look at things that are being redone several times over because the supply in the world is dwindling. And then also just the sentimental value is worth money to people.
Yeah. And I think that the whole point about buying one done versus having to go through the trouble of doing it yourself was laid bare in 2020, specifically at Barrett-Jackson. We saw numbers like we haven't ever seen on cars that were selling. And it was because the cars were done and you couldn't get parts.
Yep.
And
you couldn't even get new cars.
All of a sudden, no, I mean, and people were like, well, you only live once. Now's a chance to buy the thing I've always wanted. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in the market. People are still wanting, they're buying the things they've always wanted because they've always wanted it. And now's the time. And for better or for worse, here we are.
What have you seen in the truck market that's absolutely floored you? I mean, have you seen a C10 or C20 just go for stupid numbers that you just couldn't? You're like, who's buying this and why?
I mean, just look at any of the auctions out of January from anywhere, not just Barrett-Jackson or Mecum, but any of the auction houses. There was one in particular that I looked over pretty closely at Barrett-Jackson, simply because it was very close, at least fundamentally, to what I built in my own garage here with the book truck. I mean, admittedly, it had a much nicer paint job. I'm sure everything was done to a higher level than, your average garage guy like me. But here's this truck that's got the same suspension kit that I've got on mine, same brakes I've got on mine, I think. It's an LS swap, just like mine is, and all of that good stuff. And it sold for $330,000. And this truck was on a factory frame. It wasn't even on a fancy Pro Touring chassis or anything like that. It was just really nicely done. But $330,000 of nicely done, I don't know. That's pushing it a little bit.
A lot of coin, or a nice house in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, think of the other things you could buy with that money, But to somebody, that truck was exactly what they wanted, and they weren't going to let it go.
Well, and that goes back to the old adage of how much is it worth, and it's whatever somebody's willing to pay, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
Hey, one of the stories on linkagemag.com, you're talking about the future of muscle. And I don't want to talk about muscle cars specifically.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to dovetail off of this article because this is mainly about like the Mopar scene and what they're doing with electrics and such. But I wanted to twist this a little bit and ask you, what do you think the future is of the quote-unquote muscle trucks, the Raptors, the TRXs? Mm-hmm. And where do you think we're going to go with the end of an era? Holman on the show, if you've listened for any length of time, he's been saying, get your big V8 now because this is it. This is the last hurrah. What's your take?
I feel the same way. I think anything that's low production, be it anything that's been built for a specific purpose, so your Raptors, your TRXs, that kind of stuff, will be something people will covet. If it's popular now, it will be even more in the future. So that is most certainly something to consider. I mean, if you're looking to buy something like this, I think you're right. You might be looking at your opportunity pretty soon because the world is changing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get worse or the new products aren't going to be great. It just means that they're different, I was on a panel at Barrett-Jackson this year, right before the auction, and we were talking about future collectibles, and we had to pick cars that we thought were going to be future collectibles. And one of the ones that I had on my list, I thought I was going to get run out of the building on this one, but I had on my list 5th gen Toyota 4Runners, simply because they're body-on-frame SUVs. They're pretty simple underneath, V6, automatic transmission, pretty straightforward, easy to come by now, but the world is shifting, and it's going to be hard to get something that's that basic. And, every 4th car on the road is a 4Runner, but it's not going to be that way forever. And also, that's the kind of thing that usability and actual use memory is one of those things that drives people to want to get something back in the future. People collect what they know, right? And if they had a 4Runner or they rode around in a lifted 4Runner or something when they were younger, that's what they're going to want in the future. So for me, I think it really comes down to not just limited production, but also anything that is treated as a specialty vehicle. Because if you look back and try to list out the cars that are in the collector world now and the trucks that are in the collector world now, they're pretty much, none of them are mundane. They're all special in some way, right? People aren't collecting Falcons, they're collecting Shelbys. And it's the same thing. It's all happened before. It's all going to happen again.
And I would venture to say that the factory specialty vehicles are going to have more value. I mean, everybody has gone crazy with these resto mods, which make them a nicer daily. But that also means that the factory fresh ones or the low mileage ones or the ones that have been restored to a Pebble Beach style, those are going to be incredibly valuable because there's even less of those. Because I think a lot of these trucks are survivors, or maybe even close to going to the junkyard like mine was. So people aren't afraid to resto mod something like that because they're taking something that would have gone to the junkyard and returning it to the road. But the number of vehicles that look like it did the day it rolled off the production line is going to be microscopic in the next decade or two.
Yeah, and one of the things that we touched on this a little bit with the book, with both of my books, with the history part that I have in the book, the specific reason that I included history in both cases was to try to make sure we pointed out the things that were rare or that were uncommon in the trucks that we're looking at, specifically so people maybe would think twice about messing up one that was special.
Yeah, no, and that was always the battle with, at the magazine, with magazine projects, is somebody would go, oh, I can't believe you cut up that rare Jeep or whatever, and half the staff would be like, well, it's mine, who cares? And the other half would be purists saying, well, now you've ruined it for the next generation. And with any luck, these vehicles outlast us, and you really have to look at it that we are just the people who have them in our care for the amount of time they're with us, and hopefully they live on beyond us, because it really is a nod back to a time in history where industry and freedom kind of intersected, whereas today industry has moved on to other things, and it's a lot harder to be free and do a burnout in the middle of the street or something like that without some camera capturing you and some neighbor getting you on video or something and complaining to the cops. Or it just really reflects a period of time that I think is really special in car culture and in American history in general.
Yeah, and I think the key to all this is to make sure that the people coming up behind you, your kids or whoever they may be, gets the hands-on opportunity, or at least the hands-on experience to fall in love with these things the same way that we did. I do my best to try to pick up my kids from school in the pickup when I can, right? In the C20 that I built, or in my first car, the 66 that's taken up half of my garage. Why? Because there's going to be a day when I'm not around, but they're going to remember that car or that truck, and they're going to want to do the same thing. To me, I just try to share the things with them that I think are interesting and that are special, and I hope that other people do the same thing, because I think that's going to keep the hobby moving the way.
So what I'm hearing you say is that Chevy GMC Trucks 67 to 1972 or Chevy GMC Trucks 1973 to 1987 would make a great gift for a young car enthusiast in your life. And you can go to cartechbooks.com to get yourself a copy. And CarTech was nice enough to give us a promo code to use. So the promo is Truck Show, which will give you 20% off any titles, not just Jim's.
So that's at checkout?
And that's at checkout. And we will put that up on our Truck Show Podcast website on the
Truck Show Podcast
feature page.
truckshowpodcast.com is where you go to get that promo code.
Yep.
Jim, congratulations on the books. These are phenomenal. And like Holman said, these are great gifts, or just be selfish and buy them for yourself.
Both books have their own Instagram page. So
Wait, what?
at 67_72_build_and_modify, or at 73_87_build_and_modify on Instagram. And then Jim, if they wanted to follow you, do you have an Instagram that they could find you at?
Yep, I'm Pick Jim, PICK_JIM. And that's on Instagram.
You said Pick Jim.
Pick Jim.
Pick Jim, that's me.
I feel like that's a political action, like a button, right? You wear on your chest.
Call to action.
You call to action.
Pick Jim.
Pick Jim. When I moved to Beaverton, I'm picking Jim.
All right. Well, on this podcast for this interview, we pick Jim.
We do.
All right, Jim. Appreciate your time and thanks so much for the insight and the conversation.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Jim.
All right, bye.
I don't know when the last time we gave you an intro, but it's time, I think.
All right, I'll take it, I guess.
Where is that? I've got 4 big tires and some beadlock wheels. I've got 4 big tires and some beadlock wheels. I've got 4 big tires and some beadlock wheels.
You were in Moab, which is in, is that western Utah?
Nope,
Northern Utah?
southeastern Utah.
I was wrong twice.
Really close. At least you had Utah right.
Yeah.
So I went out to Easter Jeep Safari, and it was a super, super busy week, and didn't get any audio, but I thought I would just walk through some of the things and tidbits I picked up from there. So
Before you get into what you did there, Holman, there are some listeners that probably don't know what Moab is. Can you describe the landscape?
it's a mecca for off-roaders. It's a giant red rock valley with sandstone cliffs and trails, and it's amazing, and it's basically a mecca for off-roading, although Moab, I gotta say, I'm a little bit disappointed with you now. They've been doing this event, the Red Rock 4-Wheel Drive Club, for the last 50 years, and or maybe even more. And Moab is growing up. There's all these hotels now. It's getting blown out. I've been going for about 20 years, and it's just not how it used to be. And then all you guys out there with your 40s and 42s are tearing up the trail. It's not that much fun on 37s anymore because everything's so dug out from these big tires and things like that, and it's, got to be honest, starting to lose a little bit of luster for me.
Well, is it become like a party that happens to just have some off-roading?
No.
Or is it still about the
No, it's all
off-roading?
about the off-roading.
Okay.
Yeah, basically you get there on Friday or Saturday. I camped with Matt Felderman from AEV and Nick Somas from Peak Suspension. We drove out, caravanned out, camped Friday night out by St. George. It was awesome. There's a video that Peak Suspension put out. I may make a cameo in the background peeing while he's interviewing Nick on there, which is probably hilarious to some of you.
Oh, so that's not the video that I put up with him on the Banks channel with him installing the pedal monster.
That's a different video.
You
Unless I was in the background of that one as well, relieving myself in the wilderness. So anyway, yeah, you get there, on the weekend, and everybody has a bunch of trails. There's a bunch of corporate parties and stuff in the evenings, and then the last couple of days of Friday and Thursday and Friday is the arena where there's a big vendor show and all that, and then people usually skedaddle out of there prior to Easter. And it's just a big wheeling party, and there's probably 10,000 Jeeps in town, and it's probably the only place where you don't have to wave at every Jeep because you would just constantly have your hand up, so people don't expect it there.
Has it become too corporatized?
No, it's not corporate at all for the most part. It's busy, and if I get the vibe that some of the businesses don't really like you, don't really want the off-roaders there, even though it's most of their, probably the majority of their income for the year, or a quarter of it probably.
But if you're a business, it's been going on for 50 years.
Yeah, but
get over it.
I know there's just a lot of people that move there.
That's like buying a house next to an airport.
Complaining about it.
And then complaining about the airport. Like, dude, it was here 40 years ago. Stop bitching.
Yeah, that's just how it is. So there's certain businesses in town that have always been pro off-road, and they remain pro off-road, like the Moab Diner and Zach's Pizza and places like that. But I don't know. It's just the vibe there is changing. It's our little Moab's growing up, and it's just not as not as it used to be. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just not what it used to be. But fortunately, you get out of town. The trails, the ones that the BLM hasn't tried to close down, are still great, and there's still a lot of fun out there. So a couple things happened. One was I had a chance to have dinner with the new head of Jeep North America. So you know that our friend Jim Morrison, friend of the show, who's been on a bunch of times, he's moved over and he's now running Jeep Performance Parts. And Bill Pfeffer, who came over from Maserati, he was at Kia, some other places. They had a very tight meeting with journalists, or he could meet like the off-road folks, and had a dinner with him and got to meet him. And one of the things he said in that actually a couple things came out of that meeting.
This is at the dinner?
This is at the dinner and at the meeting prior to the dinner. One of the things that were interesting is he said that Jeep is finally absorbing the Wagoneer brand, so now be Jeep Wagoneer. Before it was a sub-brand. It was just sort of on its own at a Jeep dealership.
It was.
And there was no Jeep branding anywhere on the vehicle except for like inside the headlights and at the base of the windshield. Everything else said Wagoneer or Grand Wagoneer. So now it'll be Jeep Wagoneer and Jeep Grand Wagoneer the way it should have been all along.
I did not know that.
And that's not an uncommon thing. Most people are like, hey, that looks like a Jeep. Well, it's a Wagoneer. Where do I get one? Jeep dealer. Well, I thought you said it wasn't a Jeep, right? It's the same thing as Ford wants to have a Raptor sub-brand, and Ford's trying to have a Mustang sub-brand, and Chevrolet's talked about a Corvette sub-brand or a Camaro sub-brand. That was all the rage in the OE world for a while, and it's stupid. So stop doing that, and Jeep is bringing Wagoneer back in.
Well, they don't even have to bring it back in. It's already there. It's the perception that it's...
Well, so anyway, the perception and reality will finally match each other on that. The other thing that he said is that he recognizes the fact that off-roading is probably going to be a little bit slower to adopt this full EV thing. And as the company is going, hardcore into EV... He was talking about that Jeep will have ICE longer and have a diversification of driveline, which I think you're seeing a little bit with Dodge and the new the Charger coming out, where it's going to be available with the Hurricane in it, the straight six, and it will be EV or it'll be ICE. I think you'll see that with some Jeep products coming out. So that was nice to hear. And then our friend Jim Morrison caused a little bit of a viral explosion in Moab.
Really? Good or bad?
He brought out a 4xe, and on the hood said Hurricane 500 on it. And all these people started taking pictures and blowing up.
They thought it was a 500 horsepower Hurricane in it?
They thought it was the straight six. So everybody freaked out and was like, that's the straight six. That's the straight. Well, what you don't realize is the four-cylinder is also called Hurricane. And Jeep Performance Parts is working on a 50 state emissions tune that would bring around 500 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque to the four-cylinder. And that's what he was promoting with that, except everybody on the trail thought it was the straight six. And I think I've said on the show before, the straight six does not fit. All of you people who think the Hurricane is coming to the JL, it's not coming to the JL.
Why'd they name it the same thing?
It's the same engine family. One's just a four-cylinder, one's a six-cylinder.
I get that, but there's the confusion. Well, I mean, when you name it the same thing, that's what you're going to get.
But it's the same engine family. It's just one's no different than the Mercedes and all those with the V6, V8s or the four-cylinder straight sixes. Went viral. Everybody was saying, oh, it's finally here. Guys, the Hurricane is 2 or 3 inches too long. The JL just had its mid-cycle refresh. There's only 4 or 5 years left of that platform. They're not going to spend 2 years getting it shoehorned in there, changing the body, getting it recrashed, all the things that have to happen. It's not happening. So I'm telling you right now, it's not happening. So
wow. The look of frustration on your face, and you're only talking to me. Well, I feel like you're standing in front of an auditorium right now, expressing this disdain to everyone.
And Jim was telling me that all these people were coming up to him on the trail, and he goes, yeah, we might have to rename it, but it was a great conversation starter. He goes, all these people wanted to know, and then when I told them what it was, they were like, oh, that's still cool. So the 500-ish is with a hybrid. It's a little bit less without the electric motor giving it the boost. So that's going to be really cool. He's doing some really cool things at JPP that I think are going to be really, really rad.
Jeep Performance Parts.
Yeah, so think about Mopar for Jeeps, essentially. That was really cool. And then he brought out a bunch of vehicles and we went over some of it.
Well, did you wait, stop. You don't blow past the Hurricane 500. Did you get a chance to go in it?
I did not get a chance to drive it. No.
Oh,
this was just a development kind of a teaser. Okay. Got a chance to see it. There's a bunch of things that he's working on. Can't talk about all of them yet, but there's some really cool things coming out of JPP where it won't be the afterthought maybe it has been to this point. One of the vehicles I got to drive was the Gladiator with the 2-inch Mopar/JPP kit. It used to have aluminum Foxes on it. They switched over to Bilstein 5160s, and it was phenomenally better in terms of ride. I took it on the trail, no more head toss, really like nice and stable and flat while still being compliant. And I think people who are trying to decide, because right now there's a lot of the Fox kits that are still on the shelves and the Bilstein kits are just hitting. We talked about it before when that press release came out, I think toward the end of last year, but I hadn't driven one. And I'm like, yeah, it'll probably be better. It's like way better.
Do they change sway bars as well, stuff like that, or is it just shocks?
It's just shocks.
Okay. Yeah, wow, really? That made that big a difference?
Massive, massive difference. And so they worked really hard on the tune on that with our friends over at Bilstein. And I got to tell you, it's phenomenal. That kit is one I would recommend now to somebody because before it was like, it felt like it was half baked, to be honest. Like it just didn't feel like it was fully hatched in my opinion.
Like
And
they
this,
just threw shocks on.
just the way it rode and things like that. It was just kind of like a meh. Like, okay, cool, you offer that, put it in your payment, whatever. Now I think if somebody gets it, they're gonna be really happy with that. So that was a really cool.
It sucks for those people who
Yeah.
bought the old one.
The other thing Jeep brought out is you can finally get from the factory for the first time ever a 2-door Wrangler with the 35 XR package on it.
A 2-door Wrangler with this 35 XR.
It was awesome. 35-inch tire package.
Okay.
Phenomenal on a 2-door. Looked so great. I drove it. Needs about an inch more of up travel just because you're on the jounces and stuff with those big tires. But I've got to tell you, that thing was awesome. It went over everything. There's like almost no breakover angle, no approach angle, no departure angle. It's just fun to drive. You can squeeze it through stuff. You drove over stuff. It just didn't care.
Does it turn on a dime?
It turns on a dime. It stops on a dime. Like, I would honestly be like, just for like a city runabout, that thing would be so much fun. Be so much fun. And so you can get that now starting in 24. And you get all the niceties with the new dash and the giant screen and all that. And
what is it called? Is there a name for it or no?
it's just a 2-door Wrangler Rubicon, but you can get the 35-inch tire package on it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so go do that thing. If you're going to get one of those and you don't want to lift it, get that and be incredibly happy and just rock on because it's so cool.
Does it come with the Hurricane 500 badging on the hood?
It does not. It says Rubicon because Hurricane 500 is not out yet.
Okay.
And then I also had a chance to get behind the wheel of the concepts that were unveiled out at the 2024 Easter Safari. And so they had 4 this year. One was a redo of the Wagoneer that had that really cool red tail carbon fiber rooftop tent. They kind of freshened that one up. So that was cool, but we've seen that one before. It used to be tan. It was out at the OVR display at LA Auto Show if you went out to there. Now it's mint green with a white roof and just some changes on the interior. Just freshens it up.
Hey, do they when they do a color change on those trucks, are they wraps or are they actually painting them?
No, they're painting them.
Oh, wow.
No, it's a full blow it apart and put it back together. They had this thing called the Jeep Willys Dispatcher concept, which was also kind of a seafoam green. And it was designed to be kind of a mix of new and old. It had like really flat bumpers on it, a Warren 8274 winch on it. So definitely old school, big square bumpers, steely wheels, mud terrain, super traction tires to give that old school vibe. But it's still a modern 4xe drivetrain. And it was cool. It was just...
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that mint color, but I do like the setup. And to go back 30 seconds... You said Willys, but didn't you correct me and say it's Willis?
It should be pronounced Willis. Nobody pronounces it that way, but
Okay.
the ones in the know, Willis is the correct. So the other cool thing that this had is an embossed hood graphic. So instead of just stickers on the hood, it says Willys on the hood, which is cool. So
it's stamped.
Yeah, it has that embossed vibe to it, like a tailgate or vintage tailgate, something like that. So that was kind of cool. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some of these design things like the bright color with a black windshield frame come into some of the future designs. If you know the history of these concepts and you know what to look for, a lot of these things end up in production. Then the other thing that they had there, which was interesting, was the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon High Top. And these were on the very first set of 40-inch BF Goodrich KO3 all-terrain tires. Right now, you will be able to get them for certain packages on the GM full-size trucks, as well as the Ranger Raptor, but they're not in the aftermarket yet. There's a big launch coming later this year. I'm sure we'll cover it here on the podcast. In fact,
There are a lot of people looking forward to those KO3s.
Massive. They've been 10 years since they got redesigned. It's still one of the better tires on the market.
The KO2's been around for
over 10 years.
10 years?
Over 10 years. So the cool thing about the new KO3 is it's everything you loved about the KO2 with some tweaks to make it a little bit of a tougher, better tire with weather, better wearing, less chunking, things like that. So super excited. I can't wait to finally drive them. They're going to be coming out in size tranches, so I don't know what size are available. BFG's been super tight-lipped, but I found the right people in Moab. We're going to try and get them on the show to talk about the new tire. They also have that new HD terrain, which is like a load range F, made for big trucks with 40s to have the trailer and payload.
Really?
And those things have been doing really well too. So I want to have somebody from BFG to come on to talk about both of these tires.
Ooh, it's going to be tough getting me out of Toyos, but I'll listen.
Toyo's a great tire. I've been really happy with those. I've been happy with the BFGs, but still all around, if I had one tire to do everything, the KO2s to this point would be that.
Really?
I'm hoping KO3s are the successor to that. There's been a lot of great changes in the marketplace. I mean, Falcon just came out with their new AT4 And you've got their RT, you got Toyo's RT Trail.
We
You've
just
got,
put the Falcon RTs on Brian Shaw's World's Strongest Man on his
Great
2002 Excursion.
Yeah.
What a gorgeous excursion. You're going to see the video on Banks' channel soon. His 7th year excursion is just gorgeous. Just shipping it back to him tomorrow to Colorado.
Nice.
But those are, so big shout to Falcon for supplying those tires. He was so stoked.
So the other cool thing about the Gladiator Rubicon high top concept is the fact that it had air suspension on it. So it had the AccuAir
No
airbags.
kidding. I've been seeing a few more of those pop up here and there,
Yep.
but I think a lot of people are hesitant.
I'm not a fan.
Oh, you're not?
Of airbags.
Oh, no,
Now,
I know that, but-
AccuAir makes a great product, and I've heard a lot of good things about this particular kit,
But you haven't used it yet.
but I haven't used it yet. This was the only concept. I ran out of time to get the drive, so I haven't been in it yet, but we know the guys over there, so hopefully I can get into it, something with it at some point. I don't necessarily like air because as it goes up in temperature, the spring rate changes. Also, if you have a bag failure, how does it fail? Does it fail up in a closed loop system? Is it an open loop and it fails down and now you don't have ground clearance, your tires are rubbing on your body? Those are the things to worry about. Although I haven't heard of any issues like that with this system. People say it's pretty crazy. It's about 6 inches, I think, of adjustability. And I know a couple people did some durability tests and they were really happy with it. But still, for what I do, where I go way out, I don't need any of that kind of tech. For me personally, I want steel spring, and I don't want to have to worry about blowing a bag or any of that kind of stuff.
It would be super cool to have this if you had a small garage like I do.
Well, it'd be
You could squat it and roll it in.
Well, it would be super cool to have it too if you had a lot of payload and you need to level the vehicle out and all that too. So there's definitely benefits to it. I just need to spend some more time with it. And then the my personal favorite, a nod to the end of the 392, is the Jeep Lowdown concept. And that thing was freaking awesome. 392 on 42-inch BFG crawlers, Dana axles, all the good stuff. So it's this really pretty red color, like a ruby red, and it had brilliant pearl white accents on it with like a racer-inspired 392 logo and badging on it. And then they used a red welding curtain for the top for shade.
That's kind of cool.
And they took off the bumpers. It's got these big-ass wheels on it. It wasn't lifted, so it definitely needed some up
Are
travel.
those like 22s? What's on that? They
I
look
believe
huge.
that's a 42-inch crawler on a 20.
On a 20.
Yeah. So it was pretty awesome. And then they did like an embossed Jeep on the tailgate, no spare.
Boy, you don't see like big 5-spoke, like KMC looking 20s in a 40. You said 42?
This is a 42.
Yeah, that's cool looking.
Looks awesome. And then I love the interior because the seats had like the racing style like grommets in it. And it was just awesome. I drove that thing around and it was like, man, this thing is so stupidly fun.
I like the dashboard. It's got a big 392 like racing lettering font.
And then this is a nod to the lower 40, which was the famous concept that was 40-inch tires on a JK. So this was sort of like nod to that. What would it be as a JL? What would it be as a 392? So overall, pretty rad.
Did you get a chance to drive it?
I did, and I didn't want to get out of it. And then I remembered,
you liked
I
it
have
better
one of
than
these.
yours?
Well, no, I mean it's cool. Everybody's in line for that thing. And the driving experience, wasn't that much different than mine. I got in mine. I was like, oh yeah, I own one of these. I get to go home in it. So.
Yeah, but the tires and the axles.
It just
and
looks
all
cool.
that.
I mean, I wouldn't want it as a daily driver. You couldn't park it anywhere. It didn't have. It was a concept. So while it's drivable, the steering was reduced quite a bit, so it wouldn't rub. And you go to turn, you're like, oh, this is like 30% reduced steering. And it's half doors and open to the elements. It's just a fun toy, but not a great daily. But as a dream vehicle, yeah, that thing would be super rad. So anyway, that was just a brief overview of my week in Moab, and I received many ducks on my Jeep, which is
what's all that about? Why were there little those yellow squeak ducks?
It's just
everywhere?
a Jeep thing.
What is that about?
Somebody likes your Jeep, they leave you a rubber duck.
I know why.
Somebody, I believe she was from Canada, started it like 10 years ago, and just caught on as a thing. And listener Jason Broom, if you guys have seen, we may have even put it on the truck show reels, the Whittle Watter.
Yeah.
He 3D printed a Whittle Watter and put magnets on and then stuck it to the side of my Jeep.
Yeah. Oh no, you can buy
Yeah.
those. They're off Instagram. Yeah, you can buy those Whittle Watters.
He made a Whittle Watter for my.
I saw it stuck onto the back your back door.
So the body on those things are aluminum, but the rear corners are
Metal,
steel.
steel,
So
yeah.
I walk out and he's like snickering. So,
But it's
anyway.
not right. I mean, you put a little Widow Watter on a Toyota. That's what all the Widow Watters are on.
But that's why it was funny, because he was like shaming my Jeep by having a Widow Watter, which is you would normally see on a Toyota.
So you got 2 ducks and a Widow Watter.
No, I got 7 ducks.
You got 7 ducks?
7 ducks.
So those are compliments, but still, like, now what do you do with the ducks? Do you re-gift them?
I don't. I have them on my workbench. There's just like 30 ducks up there that I've gotten over the years.
But it feels like you should pass it along. Like, pay it forward.
I know, but maybe I should. But
You should.
I have a thing about touching other people's vehicles, and I don't want to. And a lot of people hate the ducks.
But you're not. Oh, do they?
Yeah, yeah. There's 2 massive contingents. It's the I hate ducks and I love ducks. I personally, kind of in the middle, don't care. Like, it's nice that somebody left you something because they think you have a pretty awesome Jeep. But on the other hand, you have a bunch of kids' bath toys in your
Well,
Jeep,
who the hell is, again, walking around with bags and bags of ducks? Like, someone raided the Dollar Tree. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they've jumped the shark now because now you can buy Jeep ducks. And a lot of companies there have their logo on ducks, and you can get them that way.
No, that's whack.
No, that's how it is. And so
No, I'm saying that's dumb. Once it's gone corporate, it's over.
They've jumped the shark. So there are literally people that have ducks, and now the thing is all sorts of ducks. There's holiday ducks and bath ducks. And
no, so then when it's
Jeep
going to go to
ducks.
like little dinosaurs for like a TRX, or it's going to go to a little Raptor.
Yeah, the
that
Bronco
is just
guy.
bad.
Somebody started something. I can't remember what it is, but it's some other thing with the Bronco guys.
All right,
Those
time,
weirdos
time,
are doing.
time to stop, people.
Yeah. Stop leaving little plastic toys on people's cars, I guess.
All right, let's change gears and hit some email.
You email? Yeah. I email? Do it. We email? That's right. Everybody email. Type it up. You email? Proofread. I email? Send it. We email? Click it. Everybody email.
I can't help but think that that one guy that left us the
1-star review.
1-star review, he's like, it sounds like a stupid FM morning show. Bunch of dorks.
Did that ever make it? Because last time I checked, it wasn't up, and I don't know if it got flagged and taken down. We didn't know anything.
I don't know, but I just think, like, man, would we have even more listeners if we ditched the silly jingles and stuff? Or do you think
No.
does this make it?
Why would I?
Does it make it feel like us?
I didn't do this show for other people. I did the show for me and you.
Clearly, the lack of revenue shows that.
Well, yeah. So, like, we just do it because it's fun, and if people want to come along for the ride, then we welcome you to join our wackiness.
I think it's fun, and if you have kids, they think it's fun. So that's what I care about. Pizza debate subject line from Jake Palmgren. So he says, "Tomato cake." With 3 exclamation marks. Yeah, sorry, Chicago, New York style pizza is real pizza. Jake Prius.
Nice.
Because I screwed up his name once. No, he
Yeah.
didn't. He put Jake, but he didn't put his last name, so he
Yeah.
just made it up, Jake Prius.
No, I think he
Oh,
drove
no,
a Prius
JP.
and you made fun of him, so he just said
No,
that.
it wasn't. It was Jake P, and I didn't know what his name was.
Oh,
I
so you
called him
said Jake Prius,
I just
yeah.
made it up, and it pissed him off.
All right, I got this one from Tommy Harrell. Says, Podshed guys, Lightning needs a headache rack on his pickup. It would be impossible for anyone to crawl in with the expanded metal flat bar round tube covering the back of the cab. Bonus, he can haul lumber longer than 6 foot without dropping the tailgate. I have multiple flatbed pickups with headache racks and frequently park with the slider open during summers. Birds, cats, and squirrels might make it inside, but not people. Side bonus, when you're loading up fence posts or firewood, you just chuck it without worrying about busting the glass. Tommy. And I thought about that and went, why didn't we think of headache racks? No, you could do a sporty one.
Because I have 4 other windows that can be broken.
So?
Which I've seen. If
Those
you go,
ones aren't on back order.
If you go on
Those
YouTube,
aren't on back
that's
order.
weird. I don't know that because I haven't tried to order one
They're
yet.
not on back order.
But I've already seen 2 TRXs with the back passenger side windows broken.
And they're not on back order.
Well, I don't know that. Neither do you.
Do we
You're
need to
just
call
saying
Mike
that.
Rice to find out?
Call him. He's not going to know offhand.
He might.
You think so?
He's probably drinking whiskey right now.
Let's find out.
What's up?
Mike Rice, Lightning and Holman Truck Show podcast.
We have a question for you.
Oh, by the way, Mike Rice works
Oh,
at
boy,
Adventure
here we
Off-Road in
go.
Huntington Beach.
Yeah, and a Jeep Ram dealer. Hey, so here's the deal. Lightning's TRX almost got stolen, and so his rear glass got broken. That's how he got in, and so it's on back order, as you know. And so he's like, blah, 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 can't drive my TRX. So our listener says, hey, you should put a headache rack on that thing, and then they can't break that little window in the back. And Lightning's like, no, because I have 4 other windows. By the way, he has 5 that they could break into.
They're not going to
And-
go through the windshield.
They might.
No.
And I'm like, dude, listen, that back left or right rear window is not on back order like the slider. He goes, you don't know that. I'm like, let's call Mike Rice. Mike, is the back window on back order? The side ones.
The side ones, actually, yes. We had to find one for my other customer's stolen TRX at another dealership. They did break the side window. No, the headache rack will not stop your problems.
Oh, boo. All right. Well, you just inflated Lightning's ego again.
You didn't inflate my ego. I'm just saying, like,
If they want it, they'll get it.
They're gonna.
Oh, you have 6 other windows. Moonroof. Rappel down to that sucker.
I don't know that they're gonna break a window that they don't think
If
can
they
be
want it,
replaced easily.
They're going to take it.
Well, listen.
Well, they can't. You replace the rear one
no,
easily.
Here's the thing, though: the customers that you know that have had their trucks stolen have the theft devices. Oh, let me rephrase that, because they haven't had them stolen. If the theft devices worked, what's your experience been on thwarting thieves? Like, have any of your customers figured out a way to keep the thieves from breaking in?
Nobody has stopped them from breaking in. Lightning, your truck is the only one I know that actually hasn't been stolen. Another customer of mine was stolen, but they recovered it from a hidden GPS. Probably 3 others have been stolen, never to be seen again.
All right.
So, should we run my stickers by Mike?
Yeah.
So,
Go for
Mike,
it.
I had these die-cut vinyl stickers made for me, and I was going to place one of them on the back window of the truck in hopes that in the 1 to 2 seconds that they're taking the car cover off and they read it, they take pause.
You're assuming they can read?
Thank you. No, he's assuming that
I'm
his
saying
giant die-cut stickers will hold the glass shards together.
I think they can read because they're holding tablets in most of the videos I've seen, and they need to understand CAN bus, and they need to understand programming, so I think they can read. All right? They're not, they got to understand.
Would you just read the stickers?
Listen, enough monkeys with enough typewriters will get Shakespeare eventually. I don't think your stickers are going to help.
The first one says, break glass, make noise.
You should buzz that one.
Okay, really?
No.
I don't want to. No, because people are still going to weigh in. They're
All right,
still
but
going to
what
call
about
and
Mike?
weigh in.
Mike, you should buzz it for Mike, because he doesn't like it.
Oh, Mike, yes or no? Break glass,
On
make
the
noise.
stickers?
Yeah.
First one is break glass, make noise.
Okay, what's the next one?
Key pairing mode disabled, which is how they break in or how they drive it away, because they put in key pairing mode and they fake a key and the truck thinks it's theirs and they drive it away. The next one is do not break glass, straightforward. The next one is security protected.
Doesn't even make sense.
I would say if any of them, option B, keep pairing mode disabled.
Okay, the next one, vehicle does not run. All right. The next one.
It is a Stellantis product. So I mean,
The next one is IGLA protected, and that is my my CAN bus protection device.
well, I don't know if I'd advertise it, because if they figure out how to get around it at some point, then
Right.
they'll just know.
Okay, all right. And then how about vehicle under surveillance? And the last,
they're not going to care.
and the
Yeah, exactly.
and the last one that Holman likes, thieves will be shot.
I mean, that's what I would put on my truck, but, you know.
So the only thing that I worry about that one is that a guy down the street, he just bought a brand new 23 Camaro SS. And I stopped by on my little scooter one day and said, hey, love the car. He was working on in the garage. Young dude. So it's like mid-20s or something. Super stoked. Most expensive car he ever bought. And I go, hey, I drive the truck, the TRX down the street. And he goes, oh, you're the one that got it broken into. He already heard from the neighbors. And I go, you need this IGLA device, blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, well, let me show you this video from about 6 streets over. And it was a Hellcat, and it was from the Ring camera footage. And you had a perfect view of the car. You had one guy breaking in to the driver's side. It was nose out facing the street in his driveway. One guy breaking into the vehicle, and another guy that helping him standing with a pistol in his hand, with the pistol facing the front door. The guy couldn't start it. The guy in the car finally walked away. The guy with the pistol put it in his pocket and finally jetted after like 4 or 5 minutes. The whole time the guy was breaking in, the dude was pointing the gun at the front door of the house.
Which is why you should always point back.
So I'm just saying, like,
Well,
it kind of scares me to run a sticker like
doesn't
that.
our current POTUS advocate for shooting through doors?
I'd all jokes aside, like, I like that sticker, but like, does that actually get me shot? Like, I don't even know.
I mean, you've lived a pretty good
it's
life
not
to this
worth-
point.
Listen, we love our cars. We love our cars, but you know, it would be a messy cleanup for either direction, and no car's really worth that.
Well, listen to Mike, voice of reason.
Okay, well, we now know from Mike Rice that putting a sticker on the back window is questionable, and they are also out of the windows. So no matter what window gets broken on my truck next, I'm hosed.
I think you should just have one of your friends with a CNC machine make billet aluminum window replacements.
Why don't you just put those little cages around the windows like the UN does on trucks?
Oh, no,
Problem solved.
wrought iron bars like on all the ghetto houses.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. That's what I'm going to do.
Just like cartel trucks. Just
Exactly.
weld steel plates to it.
All right, Mike. We'll
Thanks,
talk.
Mike.
Thank you.
See ya.
Gentlemen, a pleasure as always.
All right, bye.
Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Oh, we didn't ask what he was drinking.
Damn. We'll find out. I'll ask him tomorrow. All right, I got this one from our buddy Colby White. Says, Lightning's TRX problem solved. I was recently watching a movie when I suddenly had an idea that I think is perfect for keeping Lightning's TRX in the driveway. Here's the rough design. It appears to be a high-voltage fence and designed to keep large animals inside an enclosure. So I think it would be perfect for keeping bad guys away from your truck.
Dude, that's from Jurassic Park.
That's a screenshot. You can even put a sign like this one on Amazon that says danger restricted area high voltage 10,000 volts with a T-Rex crossed out on it. Funny because you have a
Funny,
TRX.
yes.
Anyway, it seems like it does a good job of keeping things in, so why wouldn't it keep things out? Good luck, Colby White.
I mean, I appreciate the
That's
creativity.
pretty
That might
funny.
be a little difficult to pull off.
All right, well, it's still funny.
Another one, TRX rear window from Texas Trevor. Lightning. Have you thought about getting a Lexan rear window made? You're in California, so you can probably find some race shop or old school glass shop to make it for you. It's not a bad idea. I
And
don't
they're
know.
just pushing out a piece of Lexus instead of your shattering
I don't know
window.
how you keep it. You can just kick it in. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a novel idea. I don't know that it will work.
Colby White returns with Lightning's TRX Problem Solved Part 2. So never mind on the whole electric fence thing. I finished watching the movie. It didn't work out so hot for those people. But maybe you could get Igla to display this on the screen and have it say, you didn't say the magic word when somebody tries to take your truck without the code, and it's Newman from Seinfeld.
It's funny. Jeffrey Brown, subject line, Frontier spotting. Lightning and Holman. I saw these two Frontiers right next to each other the other day at work. Sure wish my daily looked something like this. Can I get some stickers now? Just kidding. I got some of the first batch that were sent out. So, Holman, if you look closely, those are two airliners.
Yep.
Frontier jets.
Yep.
Frontier Airlines.
That's funny.
That doesn't really count.
Doesn't count.
No, Jeffrey.
Because that is a brand of airline, not
Funny.
a Nissan. Oh, ripped that one into pieces. I got this one here from Trevor Nemero. Lightning's truck. Genuinely sorry you had to go through the attempted theft, Lightning. Screw thieves. Now I have something to make you feel better. Way back in my dad's day, he was big into Porsche and was the proud owner of an old Otis Chandler 1974 911 with a beautiful wide-body race trim all decked out. It was his pride and joy. One day or night when he was attending USC, someone tried to steal it but couldn't figure out the kill switch. So instead, they beat it with a crowbar, poured sugar in the gas tank. He got it fixed, but then eventually sold it because of the paranoia and my own damn birth. I guess babies don't do well in race cars. You're welcome for introducing those fears into you, but just think of the joys you can have reminding your kids for decades. Quote unquote, did you lock the door? Are you sure? Let me check. That's from our friend Trevor.
What a dick. Man, that's things. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like a rich kid going to a nice school, and
Yeah.
I don't know, like they're trying to break into it to steal something inside, and they get pissed off and put the sugar in the gas tank and all this. Doesn't feel like someone who wants to steal the vehicle.
a lot of effort.
They're just trying to mess with you.
A lot of effort.
Leon Miller writes, Frontier spotted in the wild. Hey guys, love the show. I'm one of the new listeners from last year and can't stop listening.
Welcome.
I'm a truck driver of the 18-wheel variety, and your show gave me some insights into looking for my first new truck. I saw a Frontier in the wild and managed to snap a photo. Also, my favorite episode, of course, is the Iowa 80 Truck Stop Show. Spent many visits there over the past few years. The fried chicken at the buffet is a must-have. And Leon gives his address, and this will be a pleasure sending you some Truck Show Podcast stickers, Leon. I think my wife has taken over that duty. And Leon closes the email with, love the show, taste the biscuits, parameters, and the embargo.
Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of the biscuit.
Mounter, monitor, key, engine, parameters.
Embargo.
All right, so our buddy Ray, who formerly proposed the retractable bollards in your driveway, is now coming with a new idea.
He is full of ideas.
The Denver boot. So Ray says...
Wait, is that the big yellow thing that clamps on the
Yeah, like
wheels?
the parking people.
Oh, geez.
So he says, clearly Jay's not keen on my retractable bollard suggestion and was lukewarm on Sean's suggestion of a low wrought iron sliding fence. So how about putting on a Denver boot at night? You could even use it wherever you park during the day to be extra safe. Even if they don't make those wheel locks large enough for the TRX wheels and body clearance, Jay has all that engineering talent and SolidWorks at Banks to slap out a design doing a bit of night weekend work. It's all a ginormous pain, I know, but better than losing such a great truck and one worth so much dough. And that's from our friend Ray.
Ray, that's actually not a bad idea. My concern with that style of lock is that they would mar up my HRE FT1 wheels.
Not if you happen to put some felt or something between
Coat
there.
it with rubber or something?
No, why not?
Oh, I could dip it in a vat of that rubberized
dip
stuff.
or yeah.
Well, yeah,
Oh, that
plastic
you put
dip.
on like the
Yeah,
handles
of
of
screwdrivers.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting. I might be on board with that idea. TruckShowPodcast@gmail.com is the general email inbox. Lightning@TruckShowPodcast.com is me. And Holman@TruckShowPodcast.com is him.
The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show. Oh, oh.
And of course, you can follow us and do that over on the gram at Truck Show Podcast or on Facebook. You can find our individual profiles at LBC Lighting, at Sean P. Holman. And of course, we love hearing from you, whether you're wrenching in the garage, you're driving cross country, you're bored, you're happy, you have something to say, you disagree with us. Well, hit us up on the 5-star hotline, 657-205-6105.
Are you sure that you want to open it up to people who disagree with us?
We say that every time.
That could be like a landslide.
Bring it in. In fact, Zach at Dana saw me in Moab and told me that some of the things that Mr. Steven Watson said were incorrect. And he's like, I have a response. And so I said, bring it on. So
Now
we got to
wait.
have Zach from Dana on.
What, do we get him on with
So
Steven?
we can brawl?
Yes.
Oh, maybe.
Interesting.
Anyway, so he's like, oh, there's some incorrect info. I have a list. I'm like, well, send an email.
We actually made a list.
Yeah. So Zach Casey over at Dana, we're waiting to hear back from you. So they're all listening. That's the point, right?
Okay.
All right. Head over to truckshowpodcast.com. On our website, not only can you find all the new events that are happening in your world, but you can also find our featured products page. We'll be updating that soon. And then also leave us a review, either on Spotify or Apple Podcast app. Please leave us a 5-star review. Those things help for the discoverability of the show. And before we hang it up, we have to thank our guest, Jim Pickering. If you're looking for how to build and modify your Chevy GMC truck, your 67 to 72 or your 73 to 87, you want to check out his books that are available from CarTech. And there will also be a discount code on our featured products page if you're interested in purchasing those particular books or any of the books in the CarTech catalog.
Hold on just a second, Holman. I am just ordering both books and used our discount. There you go. Done.
Did you go to the CarTechBooks.com website and type in Truck Show before you hit the purchase button?
You know I did.
20% off. All right, before we close out the show, we have to thank our friends over at Nissan, the presenting sponsor of this and just about all Truck Show podcasts. We're excited to have them on board for another year so we can tell you all about the awesome Nissan pickup trucks like the Frontier. If you're in the market for a midsize truck, head over to your local Nissan dealer where you can check them out in person. Build and price your Nissan Frontier at nissanusa.com. Get that 310 horsepower V6, that fully boxed frame. You can choose from 2 body styles. Get those zero gravity seats, that Fender audio system. And hey, I was looking up, even the Nissan Frontier Crew Cab Pro 4X, which is the heaviest version of it, still has 1,220 pounds of maximum payload and can still tow 6,170 pounds. Sounds like a deal to me.
And speaking of smoking deals, if you got a 17 to 24 Duramax L5P and you're interested in the brand new Monster Ram, which improves throttle response, extends turbo life, and does so with no turbo surge, head over to @LBC Lightning on the gram and DM me for a little something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'll hook a
discount.
brother up. A discount.
Yeah?
That's what I'm saying.
All
Well, I didn't want to say discount.
All right.
Because Banks doesn't do discounts.
No, well, LBC Lightning
but
does.
LBC Lightning.
You're selling stuff out of the back of your trunk in an alley, right?
I mean, a little bit.
Or at the back door of the warehouse?
No. Hold on a second. No. That implies I'm stealing stuff. That's not the case. I'm just
You
giving
steal the hearts and minds of our listeners every week.
That's what I'm doing. I got a super secret discount code. Oh, I said discount. I got a super secret listener bro code. Yeah, that's what I'm going to call it, the bro code.
The bro code, all right. All right, and of course, if you are looking for quality full synthetic lubrication for your truck, you got to go see Amsoil. Head over to amsoil.com. Check out the catalog. They are a pioneer in synthetic lubricants. They have been for more than 50 years, whether it's motor oil, lubricants and protectants, grease, additives, and even more than that. Amsoil has you covered. They are the official oil and title sponsor of Ultimate Callout Challenge and the official oil of the National Association of Diesel Motorsports. Find out how Amsoil synthetic lubricants can save you money and time by helping your vehicles run better and last longer than with conventional oils at amsoil.com. Amsoil is the leader in synthetics.
Thanks for watching, and remember, everything matters.
The Truck Show Podcast is a production of Truck Famous LLC. This podcast was created by Sean Holman and Jay Tillis with production elements by DJ Omar Khan. If you like what you've heard, please open your Apple Podcast or Spotify app and give us a 5-star rating. And if you're a fan, there's no better way to show your support than by patronizing our sponsors. Some vehicles may have been harmed during the making of this podcast.